Hello and welcome to Fintech Finance's Virtual Arena. I'm your host, Doug Mackenzie, and on today's session, we're going to be looking at the digital payments revolution that's happening in Nigeria and obviously the huge scope for its growth. And joining me is a man right at the heart of that. I've got Tayo Oviosu, the founder and group CEO of Paga. Tayo, how are you doing here this morning?
I'm very good, Doug. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm excited to be here with you.
It's absolutely our pleasure because, as I'm sure a lot of our audience are aware, Nigeria and the scope for growth and the scope of payments in that ecosystem is so huge. We're honored to have you on the show. So Tayo, for audience who might not be aware, could you take us through Paga a bit, please?
Definitely, and thank you. So I founded Paga about 11, 12 years ago now. So what we're building here is we're building PayPal or Square Inc. for Africa, right? Where we're solving and making it easy for people to pay and get paid as consumers, or for merchants and small, medium businesses to collect payments. The reality today is that Nigeria and all of Africa really are more than a decade behind the West when it comes to financial technology and financial infrastructure. In Nigeria, where I am today, 61% of Nigerians are unbanked. Wow. And arguably all of us are underbanked. Yeah. And this is the largest country on the continent, 200 million people, $500 billion GDP, which we think is actually very understated because it's a very informal economy. So what Paga seeks to do is to solve these problems by building this payments and financial services ecosystem for both consumers and small, medium businesses.
That's huge because the distinction between underbanked and non-banked is so big. Yes. And then to being able to be fit into that space and create the ecosystem itself, which I think you guys are probably, by the sounds of it, working towards, that must put you in such a brilliant position. So I'm really, really interested in kind of working out how Paga is going to work in this ecosystem that is, so as you've mentioned, predominantly underbanked or at least even non-banked, and where cash is obviously as a result still king. How are you guys going to create that ecosystem?
Yeah, I know. And actually that was the big question I had when I had epiphany about starting Paga, right? How do you get a mass market that is not digitally enabled, still using cash, into a digital platform, right? And the answer for me and the aha was leverage our network, a network of agents. These are mom and pop shops, pharmacies, grocery stores in the local communities, and they become the bridge from cash to digital. So what we have built, at Paga is a hybrid payment system that merges with offline and online, right? And that's because in Africa today, digital-only platforms don't scale across the continent because smartphone penetration is still super low, 12% in Nigeria. Cash, as you mentioned, is still very much king, and the banks are too slow to innovate. So what we've done is we have this network of agents across the country. We currently have almost 60,000 points of presence. Of agents and they have multiple stores and all this kind of stuff, and those are places where people can go into and get services rendered to them. So that's one big aspect of how we solve the cash solution. Is like we meet people where they are, offer a digital platform and a path for them to go from cash to digital. So as an example, if I were to send money to you, Doug, the way I would do it, if I were one of the mass market in a neighborhood, I would walk into a Paga agent and say, here's 5,000 Naira, and I want to send it to Doug's bank account. And I'll give them your bank account. They'll tell me, oh, the cost of that transaction is 100 Naira. So I will pay 5,100 as an example. Now, we will take that 5,100 out of the agent's digital wallet with us. We will send on the 5,000 to your account. You'll get the alert. And out of that 100, the agent makes a commission and we make a commission.
Right.
And you get a notice right there, successful. So you didn't need to go and stay in traffic for 20 minutes, get to the bank, stay in the banking hall for another 20 minutes, and then come back and you would have paid double, at least the price of just doing that at a neighborhood store.
You see, that's absolutely incredible. And the fact that the neighborhood shop does get that blowback effectively is so impressive because it then democratizes the creation of these services and the willingness for people to get on board.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that is like the first path, right? Because then once people come on board themselves, then they can also come on board themselves and use feature phones. They don't have to have a smartphone to access Paga, right? And so
Wow.
that way on the feature phone, they get a menu-driven system by dialing *242#, and they could also move. And we started driving December of 2019 and having really good progress on people owning their own wallets separate from using the agents.
That's huge. Now, with that in mind, then, once we start seeing that scale, obviously, we've already talked about the huge population within Nigeria.
Yeah.
But let's look at that growth and where that's going to evolve, and how is Paga going to be a part of that, and what can you guys, what are you looking to offer up in the future off the back of that scale?
Yeah. So, what we've done so far is that we've tackled the consumer payments problem. And there we now have across our entire platform, 18.6 million users. And that is growing at a really, really good clip. And now last year, we actually launched our offering for the seller side, for the small, medium businesses called Doroki. And Doroki partnered with Visa in driving this about digitizing the small, medium businesses. Giving them one place to have their ledger, to have their manager inventory, to scale their businesses, right? And digitize what they're doing, collect payments. And so Doroki comes with an MPOS and an app that allows you to collect alternative forms of payment from anybody, not just Paga customers, right?
Wow.
So you can pay with your Visa card, you can pay with your MasterCard, your Verve card. You can also pay with Paga, of course. And now, a few months ago, we just got a banking license. So we are going to ultimately also offer credit to the merchants, to the consumers in this ecosystem. So we are really excited about building and continuing to build in Nigeria and scaling here, but we're also now thinking about other markets, right? And so for us, the big challenge for us is velocity. How fast could we move, right? Like how fast could we move in scaling in Nigeria, but also other markets, right? We're very excited about going to other African markets. We just got an approval in Ethiopia. So we're excited to soon launch a service there. And then we're actively thinking through which other countries on the continent we launch it.
Absolutely incredible. And I think that's been one issue we've seen with a lot of the traditional institutions is being able to stratify themselves across the African continent because it's so segmented. So I'm really interested to kind of hear on those kind of tiptoes into Ethiopia. What was that like? What was that process like for you guys at Paga?
Well, for us, it took a lot of engagement with the government, and I was really happy to see that they were very receptive to hearing from a non-Ethiopian company, right, foreign company. But we've had staff in Ethiopia for years, right? So actually, our platform has been mostly built in Ethiopia. We have about 40 to 50 people in Ethiopia today, and so we also have a passion for the country, right? And so what the government has done is they've opened up a category in financial services that allows for foreign players to come in. And that's going to allow us to offer our merchant services, right? So Doroki, our gateway, and our APIs for the startup ecosystem in Ethiopia. So we're really, the platform as a service. So we're really excited about that. And we think the way we think about other countries is that not everything we do will go everywhere, right? So we, depending on the market conditions and sort of where we see the real needs, we will decide which parts of our platform. And that's how we have built from day one, is that we've built a platform that is multi-currency, multilingual, very scalable, but also can be broken into its component parts, right? Yeah. Which I think gives us a lot of freedom to figure out what scales in each market we go to. Now,
we focused heavily, Tayo, on kind of the creation of a digital economy in Nigeria, but the Nigerian central bank has actually gone one step further than a lot of other countries around the world already with the introduction of the INAIR. And I'm really interested what you think that's going to bring to a high growth country like Nigeria.
Yeah, I'm actually really happy to see that the central bank has come out with the INAIR. I fundamentally believe that cryptocurrency is the future, right? And it's not going anywhere. And I would even go further than they have. And I believe that Bitcoin has the opportunity to be the currency of the internet, right? And I would go further and remove all the restrictions, and I hope that they would at some point, restrictions that they've put on cryptocurrency companies being able to access the financial ecosystem.
Yeah.
So, but it's a great step forward that they have the INAIR, and I'm very supportive of that because I do think countries need to control their own currencies, right? I think that's also true. right? You can support cryptocurrencies and also support that fact. And as much as you want it to be freely traded, they still need to understand the supply of money and all the different macro elements related to capital. So I think what it would do is it's leading us in the right direction. I think the pilot was delayed a little bit, but will get started soon. And unfortunately, it's only with the banks. But at some point, I know Paga and companies like us will be allowed to also be places where eNaira will be held. So the way we are going to play in it is to be one of the primary players, places where you can hold your eNaira and you can transact your eNaira, and we're ready for that. And so we are really eager to see how that plays out. I think it would drive remittances, particularly as a major use case. I think it would take some time for it to be a day-to-day use in country, right? It will take some time, but I think we'll eventually get there because it is on par with the physical cash. So that's really important, but it will take time for people to adopt a new technology. And I hope that they will be patient enough to go through that period of adoption cycle, right? But I'm actually really excited about it. I think it will change a lot of perspectives as time goes on.
Yeah, and kind of even just get to that point and that stage already. Shows just how important high growth markets are to kind of be able to seize the day. And I know it's such an overused phrase, but this is an example of it in its truest form when we're seeing, for instance, the European Central Bank look into it. It's very exciting. And now with that in mind then, one thing that seems to be very apparent from our conversation is how at Paga you guys look to be very kind of open with your partnerships. For instance, even on your platform, people can pay with various different ways. So how critical is it to partner and collaborate in this new ecosystem? Especially now we're seeing, for instance, all these brilliant innovations that we've been talking about pretty much come out of nowhere, and suddenly you've got to scramble and be like, okay, we can offer that too.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good question. I mean, it's been part of our ethos from day one, that there's so much to do to solve the financial infrastructure problem of Africa. We cannot do it alone. There's just no way, right?
Yeah.
And fundamentally, as individuals, the leaders of Paga, we don't believe in locking people in, right? So what we have built is an open platform, and we believe very strongly in partnerships. And that is why when we launched our platform as a service play, we really mean it. Like, we want everyone and anyone, even people who are seemingly competitors to us, to use our platform, right? Because we have done some things really well, and that we can open up to other people to use. And so for us, it's more about let's help drive innovation, right? And ingenuity. I'll give you an example. There's a company that I met recently earlier this year, and his idea is to build a digital version of the rotation markets like Nigeria people do, right? 3 people get together, every month they put the same money in, and every month one person gets the whole amount. And he's digitizing that. And I'm like, that's fantastic. And now he has built that app entirely on our infrastructure.
Wow.
Right? I mean, I'm like, that's brilliant. I mean, and someone could look at that and say, well, Paga, couldn't you do that? I'm like, yeah, we could, but that's not what we set out to do. So let somebody else do that. We can't do everything. We're not going to try to do everything. So we pick and choose the things that we're doing. But otherwise, there's so many use cases for our infrastructure that we open that up. So we're not worried about innovation or competition. We think that's good. In fact, the reality is that it's a market where there's a lot of co-opetition, where there are players that people on the surface might say, oh, aren't they competitors to Paga? But actually, we're working with each other on so many things. And I like that because it's a big market. It's a really big country. Look, this is the way that people should think about Nigeria is India, right? It's the size and capacity and scale, future scales, India many years ago, right? Of where India is today, right? We can get there.
Well, I think it's so exciting, and to be able to look into that future, it's kind of it suddenly gets the fires going, and you kind of get really excited about where the industry is going. And one thing in particular that really excites me about finance is embedded finance and the dissemination of financial services into everyday products. So I'm really interested now that you're creating this brilliant ecosystem. How are these changes going to impact non-financial organizations? Because we've already brought up one with the mom and pop shops being able to send bank to Paga payments.
Yeah, I know. I love embedded finance, by the way. I mean, that's one of the themes around our platform as a service, right? Is that could people put real capabilities of the financial rails into their apps and what they're solving, right? And think about the problem they're solving. And I think there's so much innovation happening there that it's only going to grow, right? And you mentioned the mom and pops, right? And all the small, medium businesses. We still have a long tail of digitizing them, right? If you went and surveyed small, medium businesses in the US and you ask how many of them are using Excel, a good portion of them would probably raise their hand that they have some version of Excel, right? In Nigeria, will be like almost zero, right? Like so there's such a long road of digitizing, right? How do you people are writing on a piece of paper, right? And tracking their sales. So there's such a long road for us to even just digitize them and then make more efficient through embedded finance, through embedded sales, supply chain, right? Make more efficient their purchasing, their managing of their business, their inventory, their access to finance, right? Access to loans and credit is so lacking in the market that there's a massive opportunity for that, right? Yeah. There's another company that we're actively engaged with, and they're building a digital bank just for the logistics business, for the logistics sector. And I'm like, that's amazing. And they're building that entirely on our rails, right? I love it, right? I'm like, that's on the same rails as the other company, right? But different product, different focus. And that is where I think there's a lot of opportunity down the line for us, is to continue to scale and offer services into a variety of players.
Yeah. And I think that's seeing that happen. And Tayo, I think it's so exciting to hear the fact that you are so kind of open with Paga and just kind of enabling other organizations. As you said, you can't democratize finance on your own within Africa. And I think a lot of established players within, for instance, Europe as well, are starting to see that. We're starting to see partnerships and kind of the opening of finance increase. So with that in mind then, looking to the future, just want to give you a crystal ball question here. It's always the hardest ones. What are we going to be seeing now in the next 5 or so years when it comes to payments and digital payments in Nigeria, but then maybe even slightly around Nigeria as well, with that ecosystem bleeding out?
Yeah, so I think 5 years from now, we will see a significantly large number of Nigerians being banked and having access to financial services, right? And on digital platforms. I think Paga is going to be one of the main platforms that consumers will be using. Oki will be one of the main platforms that small, medium businesses will be using. But beyond that, I think an important point that I think will come out is that cryptocurrency will be more mainstream. And not just the central bank digital currency, but I predict that we will have Bitcoin, Ethereum, stable coins be more in the day-to-day life. If not for paying at the restaurant, at least people using it to send money to each other in market. And I think that's going to happen with or without the central bank. And so if I were the central bank, I'd want to be involved and figure out how to be part of this story, right? And how to make sure that the legitimate concerns that they have are actually dealt with, right? They have legitimate concerns about anti-money laundering, right? There's legitimate concerns they have about fraud, protecting consumers, right? So there are things like that that they do need to address, and I think can be addressed. And we've seen the US addressing it in terms of how they're approaching cryptocurrency, very different than China. But so there are different examples around the world, right? But I think if the US can accomplish it, then I think it's doable, right?
Definitely. And I think that's such a brilliant way to look at it. Is, the technology has stayed there despite obviously a lot of people not thinking it would stick around. So now is the time to be at the table and ask the difficult questions, rather than ignoring it.
Exactly.
Well, I think we're coming to time. I just want to say a massive thank you for your insights. It's just been absolutely brilliant, and to be able to hear about the expansion across Africa and all the work you guys are putting in, while also enabling other people to really succeed. I think it's absolutely brilliant. So I just want to say a massive thank you to you, and also to our viewers as well, because you can catch the rest of the series and much more over at ffnews.com and of course YouTube, but especially LinkedIn, where you'll find me in the comments. So thank you so much, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your week.
Yeah, nice to be with you. Take care.